what is a modern mystic? Love of wisdom, which will be the modern side, but also the wisdom of love, which will be the mystical side. And the mystic side is for personal experience, awakenings, plugging in any direct experience of the universe. And on the modern side is the love of wisdom, and not being closed off to any ideas or philosophies or traditions or anything like that. So for me, it's open book. We learn from everything and everybody, everyone, everything around us. That's basically what I would like to do, is just learn from you guys through your input, your wisdom. So cool. Any question or anything from anybody, anywhere? The quickest way to get back in the moment is to connect with your senses. Completely being outside of the moment, it's very difficult, and I don't think it's practical for us to be there 100% of the time. So the thing is, we're going to slip into past and future. That's just the way the mind works. But the thing is that the more we can pause and take a break from that, if we can do that once a day, it's great. If we can do it 100 times a day, we're more in the moment, obviously. So the quickest way to get in the moment is a standard breath in, be aware of the breath, but also any of the senses. So I work with 9 senses. So that's the normal 5 senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing. But then also include emotion, thought, superconscious and subconscious and superconscious as senses as well. And the reason for that is all of those we can only experience in the moment. So the quickest way to ground yourself and get in the moment is simply like, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? Because the thing is, we can't smell, hear, see any of the senses. We cannot do that yesterday or tomorrow. So the quickest way to get back on the horse is, okay, what do I see, smell, feel, think? Where's my mind running to? It's just taking a step back and having a look at that, see what is happening in that moment for us. And it's very simple, and it's like, because as soon as we try to be in the moment, the mind's going to go past future. So it's like, okay, so I want to be in the, why do I want to, like, because somebody told me or whatever. There's a whole bunch of programs and belief systems behind that as well. But it's the bringing the awareness and attention. So where attention goes, energy flows. Bringing it into our body through the senses, then you're in the moment. So it's a very simple exercise, but very difficult to remember. So it's basically, it's just forming a habit. And the habit is in a pause. So if you do anything, if you're out there in the big wide world and you have a meeting, just after the meeting, just pause. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I smelling? Okay, cool. Let's take the next call. Let's do the next email. Pause. What am I seeing? What am I doing? What am I feeling? Carry on. So if you can remember to do those pauses, it's basically like punctuation on a page. So if we just have words and we keep talking and there's no punctuation, it's just one long story, that's basically what we're doing all day long. So we start in the morning and we just start writing. And at the end of the day, you're exhausted because you've got like 2,000 pages of solid writing that you can't understand because there's no punctuation. So it's vitally important to understand, for understanding, to have commas, short pauses, some period, longer pauses, and then it makes sense. And if you deal with only that email or that phone call for that 10 minutes and then, or whatever it is, and then pause, then it's done. So at the end of the day, you've did the kids and the work and cleaning and whatever, but you only have the last 10 minutes or whatever from your last pause that you have to actually let go of instead of the whole day or the whole week or the whole month or the last 50 years or that whatever of like where we never had time for ourselves to pause.
How do we stop fearing the future? She was saying she can't stop worrying about what's going to come.
Okay. So worrying about the future. The question is like, how well has it worked for us up to now? We spend a long time, many, many years worrying about the future.
And we still okay.
We're still here, we're still okay. So all the things, if you think back, all the things that you worried about 99% of it didn't happen. The 1% that really knocked you off was the ones you didn't think about and didn't expect. So that's why they knock you off your path or throw out your equilibrium. It's the ones that you don't expect. And the simple answer or question is, can I think of every possible scenario, event, word, thought that can be said by anybody or anything for the rest of my life, or for tomorrow, or for next week? If we have to really look at that, it's like the simple answer is just no. It's impossible. We can't think of all the options. So why worry about it? Is it serving you more to worry about that and take all your time and energy worrying about things that could, should, maybe would happen somewhere in the future, or being aware of the present moment? So coming back to the present moment, what is happening now? What event is happening now? Can I respond to that event? Is there a way I can reframe events? What makes me judge an event as good or bad, or something that we want, or that what we don't want? And all of that is in some sort of program, some basic program belief system. So belief system, BS, also bullshit. So this is not 100% true in all scenarios. Certain things you have to plan and have to anticipate problems. So, but that's not a worrying. That's planning and preparing, which saves you energy when it needs to come to the event. So simple thing, yeah, how are we going to do this? Is it going to work? All that kind of stuff. And this, like, so there is a bit of planning. So it's not that we live in the present all the time, because then, well, we won't eat and we won't pay bills and all those kind of things as well. So there's always the balance. It's always on a spectrum between our seeking, our mystical experiences, our inner life, our digging into knowing ourselves, going through all our belief systems, our traumas, everything else, and working through that. But then also being present in the world. Present, we're in the present. So we have to be in the present time, but also in the present space. So being present in time and space is having that presence of being able to respond to events, things, whatever is going to happen, and trust ourselves enough to be able to handle it and come through on the other side. And that brings us to some of the core belief systems of not trusting ourselves, not trusting the universe, not trusting life, and all those kind of things. So we can dig into some of those and dive into any one of those, and also go pull on the threads. So as soon as we find a belief system, is like having a crow's nest of gut or whatever with a lot of knots in. So we start pulling on the first one, then the second one, then the third one, until we get to the final knot, and then the whole lot unravels. So it's a lot of work and a lot of time. And unraveling the knots is in the present. You have to do that in the present. You unravel it from knots from the past and possible future ones, but that can only be in the present. So the bottom line is we cannot not be in the present.
Looking at my life, everything I've always worried about has actually come true. So then I'm like, wow, that's quite powerful. But it's more a constant background worrying, which then is kind of like an imagination about the future life. And I've realized that the things I've always been worried about might happen kind of have started manifesting, because it's probably where most of my attention has gone. So I'm, probably a very powerful warrior. And for me, is to then say, well, what can I worry about? And so to change that behavior to something more creative in terms of a different outcome. What does that look like? It's difficult because I haven't experienced it. So how can I manifest something I haven't experienced? So that's been a challenge, so that's just a different kind of perspective on being in a moment. So it's almost like I'm shutting out a whole spectrum of potential future outcomes and focusing on perpetuating listening to the same sounds.
Okay, so if we worry about things and they manifest in real life, then yes, obviously it's easier to worry about the same thing happening because you already got that experience. So it's a lot easier to imagine that happening and strong enough so that it happens again. But with that, if there's a loop and the same thing is repeating, there must be an underlying belief. Well, very strong beliefs. A very strong belief that whatever I worry about is going to happen. So that's one belief. There's a belief that I can only see what I know and imagine what I know, which is a difficult one because we don't know what we don't know. There is a belief that we should worry. And there's a belief that basically that we're powerless because things are going to happen and so I have to worry about it. And there's supposed to be 10,000 other beliefs. So just for you, when I'm saying that what comes up for you? So.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there are definitely beliefs, and again, so even in the beliefs side, which is in the subconscious, there are things that is conscious and things that are happening peripheral that obviously I'm not focusing on. So again, it's the same thing of what we shut out in terms of hearing and what we focus on. And so the thing is, it's not like I'm consistently worrying. It's almost like all of this is subconsciously kind of manifesting. Because in my conscious life, I've surrendered. I'm chilled. I try to I try to be in the moment. I live in the moment. Try not to worry about things. I know that the outcomes, worry doesn't take us anywhere. So it's interesting but yet there are deep-seated beliefs that keep manifesting. So it's interesting because this thing of living in the moment has become almost like an escape for me of like living in creating like a la-la world, if you know what I mean. And the more and I'm not going against what you're saying. I'm just giving you my experience of how I'm looking at these things. But it's almost like there's such layers and layers of like a thing here, like let's say my ego or an idea of who I am, that is still running the show, and even that is pretending to be in the moment. And I'm becoming aware of that. Like it's like, am I actually in the moment? Because how would we know? Just because we hear something, just because we smell something, it's like even that can become like can be hacked by the subconscious, or can be hacked by the identity. Let's call it the identity. So it's been tricky for me to discern when I'm actually in the moment, and I'm realizing that I don't think I ever am really in the moment because I'm blocking out emotions and I'm blocking out feeling. So there's, even though there's touch, but there's kind of physical things, there's higher level emotions that I'm so shutting out that it creates like a la-la land for me. So how do we know that we are actually so when you say coming to your senses, and I mean I've practiced that, and I know the concept of nine senses, but when we become conscious of the higher senses, like especially from the emotion, so I think my sense of emotion is so distorted that it's an all or nothing. It's a black and white. It's either I'm feeling nothing, and I have ideas about feeling, but I'm not experiencing the emotion, or the emotions, I get triggered and then I'm all in the emotions and then it overwhelms me. So it's like I'm bumping my toe in the emotional sense all the time, and then the rest of the time it's just numbed. So do you know what I'm saying? I mean, does that make sense?
Emotions is painful. Although that is also just a belief system. So, because without a belief system, we don't have emotions. If we think about, we have to believe in something to be upset about it, or to be happy about it, or to experience that. So the flow of emotion is on the spectrum between fear and love. So when I say spectrum, the one contains the other. So it's not this or that. That spectrum of fear and love is pure energy, but that energy vibrates at different levels. So as we go through the spectrum, we'll call it fear, anger, whatever, and go through up to joy, bliss, whatever, love on that side. But each one is contained in the other. So taking a step back from that. So number one is taking a step back from the emotions and not taking it personally. So it's not my emotion. It's not I am sad, because I am is a very powerful statement of unconditional love. So I am sad from unconditional love. You can have sadness as much as you want. I am worried, you can have that. So, but that power of that statement is huge, because you're putting the whole of the universe's energy under that statement. You're pulling into existence through the I am. And you're calling unconditional love, which will give you whatever you decide you want to be or do or experience. So, yeah, now I'm answering in a rather high level situation, because when you in the midst of it all and you're feeling sad, lonely, upset, angry, whatever it is, it's very difficult to remove yourself from self and have a look at that. But in that spectrum of that energy is the same spectrum as sound frequencies. So sound frequency is everything from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, but the combination of all those frequencies give us speech, music, all the other stuff. So it's how we interpret it. So in a certain music, say opera, somebody will have a belief system that they don't like that. And if opera comes on, it will be terrible. And the nervous system goes into panic mode. The hurt is real, like the pain is felt somatically and viscerally. But for somebody else that loves opera will listen to that and they'll be blissed out and happy and joyful, and it's all cool. So the event, or actually the frequency of that emotion didn't change. Our perspective of it has changed. Now, understand when you say when all the emotions are coming at you, like 10,000 to 1, like it's overwhelm. So, and all we can do to protect ourselves from that, first of all, is fight or flight. So, are we going to fight those emotions? So, repressing them, like, or just keeping ourselves busy with other stuff, doom scrolling, or any other addiction that or way of not facing that will do. So, but we got fight, flight, freeze, and fawn as natural, instinctual reactions, physical reactions, chemical reactions to pain. So if our perception of an emotion is that it's painful, all of those things kick in. And if we can't use any of the above, then we choose to go unconscious. In unconscious is any addiction, may it be work, sex, children, responsibility, any of those things. We can use it as an addiction to numb ourselves completely from the pain. The core belief system underneath that is that pain is bad and pain needs to be avoided, which is a very instinctual thing in the organism, we move away from painful situation and towards pleasurable situations. So that's a natural instinct. But it is also a level of somebody else's perception. We experience pain and we don't like it, so yes, that does affect it. But if we reframe and look at painful experiences, painful emotions, painful events, is what is it there to teach us? What is it there to, what blocks is it removing for us? What is it teaching us? How is it of service to us? Because once we really go into pain and not suppress it, not trying to stop it, because remember, pain plus suppression equals suffering. Pain is in the moment, it's real, and there's a lesson in it. Either the body wants to tell you something that it's not happy about, or your life as you think it should be is telling you something and you're experiencing pain as an emotion. You can also have mental pain and anxiety and depression, all the other stuff, which is mental ways of pain, but also subconscious. And subconscious is like huge. So all the shadow stuff, where's all the triggers come from, where's the very deep-seated big trauma and complex trauma from childhood, all those things, where that's sitting, what was that experience of pain that we plastering over, or a mechanism, a survival mechanism of how we're going to cope with that. So that survival mechanism can be anything from being nice, being quiet, being helpful, all those kind of things, or just bailing out and going unconscious, or basically, and leaving the body, dissociation with the body, which is also a lot of times when we use spirituality for that. So you use spirituality as a way to bypass real life and the pain that we're experiencing in this 3D. So having a look at all of that doesn't help you at all, because you're still overwhelmed by a lot of emotions. So, okay. So what small emotions can you let through? Not just opening up the whole can of worms. You just pick one of them out of the. Can you pick one that you can dig down into?
So yeah, it's I think what I've realized is sitting with it and kind of allowing these things to unfold and looking at it from a different perspective. The one thing that I think keeps coming back, I thought it was resentment, but I actually think that what I'm feeling is strongly present. And when I say this, it's like it's not like I need help. I'm actually good. But like just digging into these things and just how layers and layers of things are coming up. Betrayal is a big thing that's coming up, and it's interesting because it feels like it's a betrayal of self. It's more and more I'm realizing when I sit and allow and look, all these things are self-inflicted, and we constantly I'm trying to project it, and I'm catching myself with my projection, and then turning back in, I realize like there's a sense of betrayal of self, and yeah, it's interesting. It's just fascinating to look at these things when one actually starts looking from like allowing in the moment, sitting in the moment, being and trying to stay in the moment, and looking at all the levels of distraction and coping mechanisms, like I say, like numbing the emotions. It's almost like it's like going from smelling something to listening to something to, yeah. And so the more I've kind of cut down on my coping mechanisms, which is really intellectual stimulation. So I'm on a fast, 8-day fast of YouTube, and it's amazing because suddenly there's this quiet calmness. And I think, Michelle, it was interesting when you were saying like this uncertainty, like you've always had it, and then suddenly there's this period, and especially now it feels like there's this, like we can't escape looking at things anymore. It's like we can't escape them. Our drugs are not as potent as they used to be. It's like the cup of forgetfulness isn't potent anymore. So we wake up under surgery in a way, and yeah, the levels of deeper emotion, I think, is coming up for me, like betrayal of self, and I don't even know how to make sense of it, but it's just like that's where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because it's very much there for all of us. It's also important for us to pause in our digging and in our facing of the shadow, because the shadow work is important, and the whole idea is to know thyself. So to know thyself is to know all of thyself, the good, the bad, the conscious and the subconscious and the superconscious and the emotional and the like, all at all levels, in all energy bodies. But that's a lot of work. There's a lot to cover. So sometimes it's also just be good to be kind to yourself, and just to take that pause and just to say, you know what, I've done a lot of work. I've read a lot of stuff. I've learned a lot of stuff. I've practiced for years. And now what? I'm just going to read some trashy novel, or just sit and watch the ocean, or whatever it is. So, to quote a classic sage and a very wise entity, Winnie the Pooh, sometimes I sits and thinks, sometimes I just sits. So, sometimes just needs to sit. And it's okay. It's all right. All the shadows, all the other stuff, all the like things that has to be worked out will still be there tomorrow. So the questions were, how do we stay in the present, or how do we come back, and why is it that we get sidetracked and worry, and how to deal with that. And then also the two aspects of it, where we worry about things that never happens, but then also worry about things that do happen. And so just digging into that a little bit.
Because what can we control? We can only control now.
Yes.
Not make what happens. We can only control this very moment.
What we can control is our responsibility, being able to respond to something.
But now.
Now. Yeah, it's only in the now. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Yesterday is way gone.
You can plan it based on historical events, but there's no absolute certainty.
No.
Nothing is certain.
Okay.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can only control now. This sort of infinitesimal progression that we are on.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and actually just the now, not even 1 second from now, because we don't even know what's happening from.
Commented as we don't know.
Yeah. So
Then all our worrying about tomorrow was worth it. With the comedy, you know. We worried for that.
yeah, so like somebody hits the button and like that's it, then where's all that worrying go?
Wasting
But-
precious time in a negative frame of mind.
Yes.
But it's so
Aren't people natural warriors by heart?
and we were trained that way.
That's
Yeah.
It's
It's just
the
in
way
us.
we are.
It's kind of census-based
My father
reality.
worried and his father worried, so
yeah, and it comes
It's
from
a
a
fear-based.
fear-based. Yes.
so we can walk through a wall because we told the son.
Yeah. Yeah, and we believe
We've
it.
been programmed for even, I don't know if you believe in reincarnation.
I mean, me, and down the whole of the family tree. So yeah, there's like a on the subconscious. So just to back up, I work mainly with like 9 senses. So I take the subconscious as a sense as well, just basically because it's information that we get, like any of the other senses. So it's emotion, thought, subconscious, and superconscious. So on the subconscious lines, that's genetic. So in your family tree or your family line, ancestors, it's past lives. It is programs, cultural, social, family, tribe, all of that, everything else. It's everybody else's ideas and very seldom our own ideas and belief systems. And it does affect us because everything happens at the same time. There's no such thing as time. There's always the infinite moment of now with different scenarios. So, but we can talk about in future and past lives and everything else. Because with any belief system, there's sometimes other belief systems, core fundamental belief systems that hide under the others. So that's why with onions, as we peel through the layers, there's like many layers, and we keep peeling. So as we hit one belief system, we think, okay, that's it, cool. Because the thing with a belief system, if we notice a belief system that's clearly false, we can't believe in it anymore. So that's it, it's done. It's not, okay, we have a belief system, now we have to start working on it. It's like, here's a belief system. It's clearly false. So just let it go. Although there are infinite amounts of belief systems, because we are like inundated with belief systems from everywhere. So that's like finding those, the one, and then finding the one underneath that, and finding the one underneath that, and then clearing all those up, and then finding a different one, and realizing that there's 2 or 3 hiding underneath that one, or masquerading as another one. So belief systems masquerading as like a different, as a positive thing, with negative belief systems pretending to be positive ones, is in the idea of lofty ideals. So we've set lofty ideals for ourselves that's impossible to reach. So what we think is a positive thing is actually a negative thing, because it's reinforcing the belief in ourselves that very core, deep, fundamental beliefs is one that we're broken. And we're broken because we are separated from life, the universe, God, everything else.